Good morning. Welcome to Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. I always say for every imaging need, but then also can help you alleviate some pain remedies versus going right to the surgery table, like they've done for me probably for over the last year and a half, 2 years. I appreciate their help and their support. Again, Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. Dr. Finn and Dr. Razan are my go-tos over there, and they do a great job. But this episode of Inside the Huddle, we're going to talk a little bit about practice structure. We've heard it, come out of some, media outlets, in the last week or so, and what Matt Rule has done and tried to implement maybe at times last year and throughout the season as well. And obviously maybe amped it up a little bit during spring ball and the disadvantage or the advantages of it, my experiences in it, and what he's maybe is trying to do. I can't speak for Matt Rule. I only can give my opinion based on my experience of being in a practice structure somewhat like this. And the big thing that you hear, what Matt Rule is known for, and obviously you've seen it from like Hassan Reddick. You've seen Deion Dawkins, and my Buffalo Bills. Hassan Reddick is one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. Was a walk on, and Matt Rule has developed him. I look at the word development like buy-in. They're two words in air quotes, but then also they mean something, but there's no direct definition, because let's look at development. Development isn't just one-sided. It is a relationship. And I always talk about sports. It is a relationship. You have to give sometimes more than what you get out. But if you don't give everything that you can, you definitely won't get anything out of it. Or if you do, it'll be very short term and very short sighted, and you'll be a flash in the pan. So when you think about development, it's a relationship. It's a contract. It's a written unwritten contract that has no end. It doesn't, and the reason why and there's no clear definition except for you have to do exactly what it takes. You have to do everything under the sun to the maximum and be willing to adjust. You have to do everything under the sun to the maximum and be willing to deal with maybe you get beat or you don't, you have to go through some adversity, or you're necessarily not in line to be, go from high school, all-American 4-star to next thing you know, you're playing 90 plays in the Big Ten, if not the best conference in the nation, it's the second best conference in the nation with the best coaches and the best players. It's a very hard want for a lot of high school players, but it starts for development. How fast do kids develop? Are they mature off the field? What does that entail? Time management, being in reality of where you are as a player and as a person. That's a huge thing as well. Do you deal with success as bad, or no? Do you deal with the success in a way that it doesn't lead to failures? And here's what I mean by this. Say you have a good game or a good practice and you get your name in the X world or Twitter, what it used to be. Do you relax, or do you put the throttle down and push and strive for more without the expectations of getting a pat on the back? And how many days, how many practices, how many meetings, how many weight sessions can you do that? And then also, can you recover the right way? Can you eat the right way? Can you rest the right way? It all is encompassing and in development. And you have to be able to be open to new ideas, and you have to be willing to do it over and over and over without a guarantee of an outcome. And it cannot be circumstantial. I think a lot of times people look at development, and if the circumstances don't work out right away, then whoop, you throw up your hands. Either the coach or the weight coach or the team or the organization can't develop this player, and this player didn't do X, Y, and Z. So then therefore, let's just throw him out to the wolves, and he's in the transfer portal, and you never hear from him again. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it happens really quick, and there's different circumstances that can allow either way. Maybe you come from a program in high school that you've never had any structure. You've never had a weight program. You maybe never don't have access to 3 or 4 meals a day, and you never really lifted weights and all that other stuff and had off-season training, and you're just a player that does need time in the weight room in a college environment to develop. Or you're a player that maybe comes from, say, an IMG like Cam Lenhart. I feel like his development, his maturity. He was ready to go. He's been called an old soul. So that's where you see him making immediate impact. The coaching, the environment, the relationship that he's already built as far as the work ethic and what it takes to be good at a level, at a higher high school level than normal, playing for IMG, seemed to work out really well for him in his freshman year. And so what you have to do is, and this is what's really a unique way of recruiting in this day and age, which I think was a little bit easier back when I played, is you get some guys that are ready to play. You get some guys that need some seasoning for about 2 or 3 years, and then you get some of those guys in the middle that can be, be ready to contribute, but then some that might need, a little bit more seasoning, and you might not see the fruits of their labor until their 4th or 5th year. And then next thing you know, you have a really excellent class. You start stacking classes upon classes, and then you're able to get to a national championship level. Obviously, you need some bell cows like Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips, Grant Wisham, Jason Peter, and all those guys, Mike Minner, and Terrell Farley and all those guys to be the superstars right away. But you need some nuts and bolts guys as well to go through the system and keep that consistency. So now you're talking about the development stage in spring ball. And one of the things they talked about is the 3 stations. What's the point of that? 3 stations is this. Say like they don't do first, second, or third team, but they have 3 pods of teams, right? Offense and defense. And so let's just take simple terms and simple numbers. If your practice plan calls for 100 plays per unit, or let's just say 150 plays. Well, if you're doing only one or 2 stations, that's 75 reps per station. That means the first, the second and third unit, or somebody's not going to get as many reps as the guys that are ahead of them on the depth chart. And you just don't have first, second, and third unit. You might be 4 or 5 deep at a position group. And so if you take 75 and you divide it by 5, that's 15 reps. Versus if you do 3 stations and you spread it out, each player can get actually 3 times that amount of work. And so that's what you want to do. It creates competition. It creates development. And how do you develop, right? I think that's the bigger question I always get. How do you develop a player? Well, number one, you want to be obviously develop them physically in the weight room and then their off-season training. That's what their winter conditioning is for. But then you want to develop them on the field, right? The repetition over and over and over, doing your technique right, your footwork right, and then competing, and then also dealing with adversity, right? Not having them just run, let's just say, for explanation purposes, cover 3 against the same routes every single time. You want them to run cover 3 against, let's just say, the first unit, the second unit, the third unit, different body types, different plays, different concepts. Then you want them to run cover 4. Then you want them to run cover 6, cover 8, fire zones, blitz, man-to-man. What you're doing is developing this player, say like a linebacker, with let's 3 times as many reps. Let's just take it 4 times as many reps as they maybe were getting in a normal or in some of the staffs prior. And then next thing you know, you start to see some guys develop as fast as you'd originally hope when they were getting recruited. Then you start to see some guys that come out of the woodwork that are like, oh, where's he been? Right. And here's an example, right? You take Deshaun Singleton, right? The safety. Probably, if you start to read some of the stuff after, the Mickey Joseph tenure, that he might be the odd man out, might be looking to get in the transfer portal, right? Bought into Matt Rule's system, bought into Coach Coleman's, weight program, bought in to Coach Cooper in his coaching and the defensive scheme by Tony White. And next thing you know, him and Omar Brown were a really good safety tandem last year, and he came out of nowhere. That's development. How do you get the best out of Deshaun Singleton that you maybe not have thought that you got out of him at prior? And it's because of the practice structure, the amount of reps, and the development, not only on the field, but off the field. And then next thing you know, you're like, man, he's actually a really good player. And now we're in spring. Can't wait to get him back out there. I'm pretty sure he might not. He has a little bit of an injury, and so he's probably going to be ready for fall camp. But that's a guy that you can count on now. You want to think of a Tommy Hill, right? Now, his was probably more off the field. So you have to develop him off the field. So you develop him off the field, and then now his talent, where he was able to be a two-way player and maybe a man without a position, now you see him as one of the more consistent cornerbacks that you've had, and it was a bright spot, right? You allowed Malcolm Hartzog to go maybe more inside. You had maybe a lockdown corner in Tommy Hill that got a lot of experience, became consistent, led the team in interceptions. Now you're expecting even a bigger year after he's more comfortable in the season, in the system, both on and off the field. And then now you got development right there. Then you think of Mekhi Gobert, right? Where it would go without saying he was like on a milk carton and left, like quote unquote, what we call in football terms, left for dead, where it was like never really got a chance. And you wonder what happened, right? Well, guess what he did? He came in, totally changed his body, and then came in and with this practice structure, with this new open, completely open competition, takes advantage of it, steps out there on the first game of the year, special teams tackle, lead the team in tackles in the Colorado game, makes some big plays, becomes a consistent player. That's development. That's what they're trying to do with this practice structure. Yes, everybody's worried about the quarterback position. You got three guys competing for the position, or three known guys competing for the position. So you're able to split the reps and get a better evaluation of every player, let alone the quarterback position, let alone the running back position, let alone the tight end position, let alone the offensive line, right? Whether it's the tackle position, interior offensive line, and then let's not forget about the receivers. And then on the defensive side, the inside linebacker position. You're seeing Ernie Shavers come out of nowhere as a true freshman, having his name highlighted numerous times. How do you do that? How does a freshman come? Yes, they're great athletes. Everybody that comes to Nebraska is a great athlete. But you have to have one opportunity, but then also you have to have a chance to develop. So when you're a great athlete, great coaching, he buys in, he's an early enrollee, and you're getting the practice reps, you're able to lessen that learning curve and make more consistent plays. That's what this staff is doing. That's what they've done in the first year, and you expect it to do it even more because everybody's more comfortable in the sense of they know where to go, how to go, when to do it. You don't have to, essentially herd the cattle. They know where they're going, and then they're more efficient in their work. And if you get an internally led team, locker room team, with the development by the coaches and the structure, how they're doing practice on it, and they're also doing a lot of things off the field, then you're going to see a more consistent reload instead of rebuild type of program. And that's what I think they're trying to get to. So the practice structure has been huge, and I think they've been able to amp it up because of their another year. They don't have to do some of the things they had to do in the first year. And I will say this before we go to break. I think that Mickey Joseph and staff, when they took over those last 8 games, set a good, like I call it a Mr. T starter kit for a new staff to come in. Then I think Matt Rule and staff came in and took it to the whole nother level. So where we're at right now, and I'm hoping to see as the spring goes on, the summer goes on, obviously fall camp and the season, you're going to see depth from the starters to the guys that are rotational players. And then as they continue along during the season, continue to get guys that are maybe not playing right away, the reps, that you'll get guys that maybe didn't play in the beginning of the season, start to play in the middle of the season. Not only if they, lessen the gap competition wise, but if you have a little bit of an injury and then you feel safer, say, okay, you know what, Jay Foreman, you got a little bit of a hamstring twinge. You're the starter, but we're going to put in so-and-so because we know that with the week off that you'll be closer to 100%. And we trust him because we've seen him in our process. And when you have a good practice structure, you can create game-like situations to give you a better evaluation. So when things come out, it's not just say, okay, well, I'm going to play him because I want to play him and he's one of my favorite players and I've kind of talked myself into playing him. Versus getting a guy and saying, you know what, I've seen it, he's done it. Our practice structure is proven and time tested and it's worked. We believe in him. And guess what? He believes in himself. That's a huge part of development as well. And his teammates believe in him. So when he goes into the game, you don't see a huge drop off. We always seen that, and sometimes where a starter, gets hurt, somebody else comes in and was like they had never played football before, and you always wondered what happened. And so, with that being said, good first segment there about practice structure, practice breakdown, the advantages of it. After this break, we're going to come back and talk about my personal development in this type of practice structure, which I think helped me, which then led me to starting as a freshman, playing 4 years, 9-year NFL career. I think it all started in spring ball, but we're going to take a quick break. Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.